Hey, adulting and adult fam, welcome to another episode of our podcast. This is a part two on the previous episode that we did when we were talking all things singleness and everything surrounding it. I would suggest that you go back and listen to that if you have not yet listened to it, so that you can get a better context of what we are talking about specifically in this part two video. Thank you so much for tuning in and do enjoy the rest of the episode.
What do boundaries look like to you guys? What is your limit in a relationship?
Maranatha, please
What
go first. I have to
what
think.
what is the point before too far? What is the point before too far?
Oh, too far. Hey, geez. Okay, this one is tricky. Wow, actually.
So let me elaborate a bit more. We are agreeing that sex is too far. Yes.
Yeah.
We all agree on that. So what is the point before too far? Because
Here's the
to someone,
thing, actually.
to someone, foreplay might be okay. To
That's the thing.
someone else, kissing might not be okay. But if we're going to say that as Christians, we're going to collectively, do relationships together, we're going to help each other out. And, I might be a Christian listening to this podcast and maybe I've had sex before in a relationship and I don't want to do that anymore. My question right now is, what is too far? Is foreplay too far? Is kissing too far? Is being in Maranatha's raised room too far?
Yeah.
What is too far?
Okay.
Should I
here's what
start?
think. No. I'll go for it. It's fine.
Okay.
Then I'll go after
Here's
her.
what I think. I think anything that makes you feel like now you're losing yourself, like now you're losing that control that you had before. Anything that takes you to that point must be too far. So like you said, for someone, it could be kissing, right? That might feel, oh, okay, no, I'm about to do it. Like, I can't do this anymore. I'm about to have sex with this person. You know your limits. You know what you can handle and what you can't handle, right? So I think too far looks different for everyone. And another thing is sex, the definition of sex is it has evolved like so much. Even in this day and age, to someone else, what you saying is foreplay might be sex for someone else. It's just like, no, we had sex, like but it was just foreplay. So I really think as long as when you are still comfortable and you feel that you're still in control and you're at a point where you're like, no, sharp, that's where like you can say I'm gonna draw the line here. But then if it's like at a point where you feel you're losing control over your body, then I think that's where too far is. So yeah, for me personally, no, it can't reach foreplay. No ways. Like, let's not even go there. Like, but so like keep it PG. PG, 13. Let's keep it there.
Okay.
But
yeah,
all these other things, Jay, I really feel maybe some people might get to a point of foreplay and they're just okay with it. They're just like, okay, no, I'm fine. I still have control. Some people do have that control, but some people don't. So I really think it looks different for other people. For everyone.
Because with even what you're saying, that it looks different to some people. I know people who don't hug, okay? There are people who don't hug at all. And that's that's a lot. For me, I pretty much do agree with what Maranatha just said, that it does look different for other people. For some people, like if they hug, especially now because it's been a while, we're not intimate at all, but now you're just holding me, sir. For some people,
why isn't the Holy Spirit holding you?
There needs to be space in between us for the Holy Spirit, but For some people, it's like that. For some people, it's just easy like that. For some people, once you kiss, it's downhill from here. Hi,
Yeah.
shout out to the people who think foreplay is where it stops. Cause what? Okay, shout out to y'all.
Yeah.
I actually even know about couples who I think they waited 4 years before they even kissed. Like they kissed on their wedding day, and that's great because I I'm like that's really great. I actually remember asking Atla, I'm like, but what do you feel about this one? Because for me, I feel like that would be a little bit hard. But then with what I had mentioned previously, I'm like, if we're both intentional and the boundaries we set, if a person comes like this and I come like this, I feel like somehow we will meet each other halfway. If they say that, hey man, if we kiss, it's over for me, then I'll just have to not. But for me, I feel like that's my boundary. But the more I think about it, knowing myself, I know it'll start there, and the next time it can easily go downhill because, yeah, if I'm just keeping it 100. So yeah, I know at least like no nothing. Do you even hug? Do you think you're gonna hug?
I don't know.
Or you just
Okay,
gonna do the church hug, the side hug,
high five,
just touching shoulders.
Just give them a high five. I think intimacy for me is any sort of intimacy is like crossing the line.
Jeez, man.
And I think this year came brand new. He's coming in with the heat, and I love it though. I'm pretty much challenged with most of it, but it's hard to get there. But
Ish, guys, let me explain where I'm coming from. So, yeah, I'm just gonna go there. I'm gonna keep it real. I'm gonna keep it 100.
No pressure.
I've been in a relationship where I had sex. Previously, my previous relationship I did, and I saw how it tore my relationship with God apart. I saw how it was bad. It was bad. My relationship with God got bad, and it got to a point where God literally had to take me out of the relationship. Literally, he literally had to and throw me out of the relationship. Otherwise, I don't know where it would have gotten. And at the end of last year, the start of this year, after that relationship, I talked to God a lot, and I saw how bad things got, and I talked to a few people who are leaders in the church, and I told them what happened in the relationship, and most of them said the same thing. We're not surprised. That's all they said. We're not surprised because we know how many people in the church have sex.
Yeah.
You're not the first person. You won't be the last. But I then started to I genuinely started to read up a lot on Christian dating. I started to watch YouTube channels and sermons. I genuinely wanted to consume information about Christian dating, the Christian way of really doing things. And I'm not talking about Christians dating. I'm talking about the Christian way of dating, because I think those are two different things. I think it's possible to be both Christians and do dating the way the world does.
Yeah.
And coming from that place, and I didn't go through this alone. I know so many of my friends who've also been through this, who are trying to get back on their journey of spiritual, of sexual purity with God. And I think so many things started to make sense this year that I've learned growing up. In the church I grew up in, they told us that don't be around don't be together in secluded places without people around you. They even went as far as saying that your pastor should be there wherever you guys go. When you guys go and
yeah, that's what they told us, bro.
and growing up, that sounded crazy,
Yeah.
It sounded crazy that don't do that. But I think looking back at where I came from in terms of my journey, so many things start making sense. I mean, things like boundaries start making sense. And I think intimacy on so many different levels is is is, is yo, it genuinely doesn't end well. Hey, I mean, you're probably watching and you're thinking that you're in a relationship and you're intimate with your partner, but you guys are not having sex, and you guys have been doing it for a long time, so you think it's okay. And I'm not faulting you, but I think we live in an age where so many things are over, and I keep talking about hypersexualization. And the thing about it is that it makes you believe that so many things are okay. You know, you start to
And
believe that things you start to believe that things like foreplay are okay. Do you want to say something?
no, I just wanted like just to say in passing that with the way like the hypersexualization or oversexualization of everything, I think for some people that end up becoming the basis of their relationship, which is why in some part that should just be kept from marriage, or just be honest with what is the foundation of this thing, and like oh, is it mainly because we're just trying to have sex and everything, and then after that what, you know? And I think maybe that's maybe the importance of also how maybe the church is trying to make this thing. There there needs to be a connection bigger than that, because I mean it could be great, but then if there's no connection bigger than that, and also of course God being the main foundation, then why are we doing this? Will we just end up doing this just because we're having sex, and then what, so I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's the approach that when I look at it, that's how I see it as well. Yeah,
Mm,
as you
mm.
can keep
It's been
saying.
normalized. It's been
Yeah,
so
Yeah, it
normalized.
has. It has.
and we're not
And
judging
and and
anyone, guys, but
Yeah.
no, we're just being honest. We're not
mm,
judging. If you feel judged, we're just speaking what we
sorry.
think is the truth.
Yeah.
Sorry for offending you if we do, but like we just feel like this is the truth. And as I was saying, I think we'll talk about sexuality in another episode. But as I'm saying that, like, I think with intimacy, it's a very slippery slope. Like, it's very easy to you know to get into things that you don't want to get into. And I'm speaking from a place where I've been. I'm speaking from
Mm-mm.
like the experiences of people around me I've talked to who've had sex before marriage and have decided that, you know what, I don't want this anymore. Because I think sex out of marriage is very dangerous. It literally kills your soul, honestly. And I don't want to go back to that place. I've been in that place. It's
Yeah.
very dark. It literally, it kills your soul. It genuinely does.
and
And
and we shouldn't forget that sexual purity is also not it's not just physical, because I feel like some people like,
yeah.
I don't know, they make myself praiseworthy because they've never had sex before, but we don't know what you're thinking
Yeah.
about, okay? So
Mm,
You
mm.
don't
it
know what you're watching.
you don't know what you're watching,
Exactly.
you know.
Exactly.
The
Exactly.
thoughts
Yeah.
that are producing you, that's making you think this thing is just as what you see, and it's not, and it pollutes you. And y'all guys, if actually going to like porn and all that, it's a whole new topic, but we're here to talk
Yeah.
about these things. But we should
Yeah. We're
know
gonna
it's
get
not.
to those
Mm,
topics.
yeah, it's
Mm,
not just physical, and like be honest with
yeah.
yourself. It takes a lot of renewal of the mind and all of that to
Mm,
understand that, hey man, yeah, it's just thing that I'm
yeah.
saying.
Yeah. And just to like, link that to what I was about to say, that intimacy is not only sexual. I think there's also emotional intimacy, and I think it's also just as dangerous in relationships. And we talked about this on the previous episode about toxic relationships and friendships. And yeah, I think equally as much as I'd say guard your sexual purity, I'd say also guard your emotional purity. Um, and I think that's why I emphasize that, my boundary is intimacy, genuinely
Mm-hmm.
intimacy. I think as and this then justifies my my theory of just being friends. I think it's possible to genuinely get to know someone who you would see yourself marrying one day, the same way, and with the same pair of glasses that you would someone who's your friend. So just to explain, because I think I lost you.
Yeah, please do.
If let's say I'm just gonna use you guys as examples. If let's say I like Khudisho, I like you, but like, yeah, if I like Khudisho and I see you as someone I'd want to marry one day, and Maranatha, you are my friend, and like it's just genuinely platonic. There's nothing to it. Like we just genuinely see each other as friends. I think we get to know each other. You and I, we talk, we call each other, we hang out. We go for lunch, we go for drinks. But
And
as
you don't
friends,
talk every day.
yeah, and we don't talk every day. Yeah, and you don't talk every day. But like you get to know each other. I think it's a very healthy way of doing things. Whereas if I and Khudisho were to, hang out, but like it's different. And that's what people say about relationships, that you see the other person as different to your other friends. So I'll see Khudisho differently. And the way we hang out.
Does Khudisho know that?
I was about to ask.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, you and Khudisho have said that, Khudisho, I like you, and he said, "Oh, Atle, stop it, I like you too."
And this is why I say you don't just call it a friendship, you call it like a special friendship.
Okay, we'll call it a special friendship.
Yeah.
Let's call it a special friendship. But I'm saying, if the normal way of doing things is that we'll go on dates, maybe 5 or 6 dates, and then we'll kiss after the date. I'll buy you flowers, on your birthday, I'll buy you gifts.
I have so many questions.
Actually, I want to ask a couple of questions too now. But
can I just finish? Can I just make my point, guys?
Keep going.
I'm going somewhere. And like, this is the conventional way of dating. I buy you gifts, we go on dates, we call each other, we get to know each other. That sounds good. And we'll get into a relationship. And I don't know what you guys do in your relationships. But anyway, that's something else. But what I'm saying is, I think I can get to know Khudisho the same way I got to know Maranatha. I think we can hang out. I think I can see you, and I can keep the same boundaries that I would with Maranatha with Khudisho. But at the same time, still maintain that unspoken agreement that we like each other, that we're trying to work towards something. Or it might be spoken. It might, whatever. But
let it be spoken. But
can I just say something?
Yeah, okay, let it be spoken. Let it be spoken then, that this is an agreement, that we like each other and we're trying to, work something out. But I'm saying that I think you can build a bond the same way you would with a friend, and still get the best of both, where you maintain, you keep yourself from getting into trouble, but at the same time, you're working towards something serious.
I have questions, Atle.
What are the questions? You have time.
Okay. Time. So you mentioned something. The first one is, you mentioned something about emotional intimacy, right? And how that can also be very dangerous. And yeah. Okay, cool. So I want to know, like, this emotional intimacy, does it have anything to do with like sharing about your life? And like, is there a point where you're oversharing? If there is, what point is that? The same way you would say there's like a point where you feel, I'm about to engage in something that I'm not supposed to, something that I've reserved for marriage. Like the same way with emotional intimacy, what is that point? And then another thing I wanted to ask is, you're saying, okay, Sharp, you're friends with myself, you're friends with Khudisho, but then when in Khudisho, you see her in a certain way. So if, let's just say, you've told her that you like her, and then she knows, like it's knowledge to her that you like
her. Everyone knows, yeah.
Okay, so everyone
knows.
knows.
Yeah, so like our friends know that, these two, they see each other they don't see each other the same way we
It's
see them.
friends.
Okay, but what about if she doesn't feel the same way? How does that work then?
The same way every other friendship works.
You just continue being friends.
I don't know. What do you do when someone tells you that they like you?
And you don't like them back.
Yeah, you just keep it normal.
Okay,
Like
okay,
the
sure.
same way you'd block me if I told you I liked you. If you don't like me back, do that. If that's what you do, then do that. If you
Okay, and
still
then
maintain a friendship, then do that also.
what if you guys, okay, you see each other in a certain way, though everyone knows you guys see each other that way, but then Khudisho gets approached by someone else, and then she likes that someone else, and she likes them in that way, but when you still like Khudisho, now what?
What do you mean? Oh, okay,
Do you
I
know?
get that. I get that.
Answer the emotional thing question first.
Yeah, let me answer that emotional thing first. I think so. Yeah, guys, sharp. Okay, I've gathered my thoughts. I talk about keeping your boundaries, and I emphasize it so much because I also think that we need to reserve some things for marriage. I think
Okay.
that's also something that's like we're seeing less of in the world. We're seeing so many people who are able to live with their partner for the rest of their lives and not get married, and they still have sex. They still do everything. Okay, and as much as sex is not the only thing that happens in a marriage.
That
I
can make
mean,
or break or whatever.
yeah, but like even in your marriage, it's not like most of the time you guys will be having sex. There's so much. You guys are literally going to grow together. You guys are developing a bond. You guys are watching each other grow,
Yeah.
basically. And I think the emotional part and why I say emotional intimacy can also become very dangerous is that I think there's a level of sharing, and I'm going to explain this more. There's a level of sharing that I think is not healthy, and not even with like this is how my day went, and yeah, and then this person said this and this and this and that. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about this attachment that you develop for a person.
Yeah.
There's
Okay.
an attachment, and we talked about it in the previous episode about being clingy. But I don't think it's being clingy only. I think it's just attachment that you develop for a person. Um, and it happens if you and I are dating and we talk every day. I think there's this attachment that develops, and I think sometimes it becomes unhealthy because relationships don't work, and even Christian relationships don't work.
True.
Sometimes things go wrong, and I think then once that relationship ends, then you suddenly have a void in you that this person has
Ooh.
left because
Yikes. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have you have like reserved a special place in your heart for this person, someone you're not even married to. And I think in Christian dating, I think like we should raise the standards for Christian dating. I genuinely think that the standards are lowering, and I think we need to raise them up in terms of boundaries and what we see as good, I mean, right or wrong. And with emotional intimacy, I think that attachment is a very dangerous thing, especially if marriage is not over the horizon. If you guys are not like engaged to get married, I think that attachment is very dangerous. And I'm not saying that your relationship is not going to work out. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just saying that it is not healthy to give so much of yourself to someone who you're not even
Mm-hmm.
100% sure that you get married to. I mean,
Makes sense.
I get that in relationships you're working towards marriage, but you guys are not even engaged yet. We're not even talking about engagement yet. um, and I think that we need to raise the standards for relationships in the church. I think that, yeah, emotional intimacy is, I keep saying this. It's as dangerous as sex. I mean, like, think about kissing. Kissing is okay, but like it leads to other things more often than not. To some people, it's even considered foreplay. So I think with emotional intimacy, the same way you form a bond with a person, I think it also leads to other things. It leads to emotional, attachment. Yeah. Am I
Okay,
making sense?
Yeah.
you're making sense. I think the truth is we are not perfect, man. Like, here's the thing. Like, another thing that is really difficult for us also is that we don't have like a specific set of, like, I can't say rules. I don't want to say rules, but like, there's no guidelines. There are no guidelines for us, for dating, or for like how it's supposed to be done. Yes, we see like, okay, you're supposed to, like, literally that's the only thing I've heard growing up is like no sex before marriage.
Yeah,
Uskajola or jolela, you know.
that's
Mm,
But
true.
mm,
it's like, what happens when we get to a point, when I get to a point where I need to be like, I'm in a relationship now, where are the guidelines, you know? And parents will tell you, no, you need to make sure that you're still staying away from sex. Okay, sharp, you have to have your pastor there at your dates and all of that. But is it practical also? That's another thing. Like, is that
mm,
Mm.
really practical?
mm,
Like, we need practical guidelines as to how this thing is supposed to go, because the truth is, I don't think I've even figured out how Christian dating is supposed to go at this point in time. And I still have a lot of questions, you know. And I
True.
think guidance with guidance from, like, with guidance from the Holy Spirit, like, I really think there are things that need to sit well with your spirit to say, okay, this is okay, but this isn't okay. There's a reason why we have the Holy Spirit there with us, like, to
True.
to guide us and to show us the way, to say, no, this is not right, this is right, this is wrong, this is right, you know,
True.
things
True.
like that. So I don't know. I think I do agree with you when it comes to this thing of like attachment and all of those things. But it's like, and how far am I supposed to take it? Like, what level of sharing am I supposed to do when it comes to us being in a relationship, hey, you know? So
mm,
it's there's
mm.
still a
I
lot to
think
come
I
out.
think I think there's a healthy way of doing it, and it's very easy to identify that. Um,
Is it
yeah, I
really
think for
always?
me, this is why I keep saying that. Yeah, I think, and that's why I keep emphasizing the whole friends thing. I think
Oh.
we can use friendships as a measuring stick of what's the healthy way of doing things. I'm not saying be like friends where you're like, hey, me and your friends only this person. I'm just saying if you use the same measuring stick and if you use the same standards that you put your friends to, why can't you do that in a relationship?
Okay, but the problem here is, you mentioned this one stuck out for me. You mentioned attachment
Mm,
also. Who's to say I'm not attached to my friends? You know,
Yeah.
and like, what, I, like, where am I, what point do I, like, how am I having friendships that are healthy enough to put my relationships against those friendships? There's that also. It's just like, okay, some people have friendships that just go south, and then they get into relationships, and then they're supposed to use those friendships as measurements for their relationships.
Mm.
But then it's not happening. Like, even the friendships are very, orange, I don't think it does work all the time. It is a good idea, but only when friendships
mm.
are healthy and they make sense, So
But then it raises the question: why do you think you're ready for a relationship if you're not, getting it right with your
some people
friendships?
just want to be in a relationship. So it does take it
Hmm.
back to that value. It's just like, what a,
Yeah, but we're not talking. But I don't think we're talking about those people now, because then we know those people are not ready for
but they
relationship.
think they
Obviously,
are.
I think,
Exactly. Which is why
yeah, but
I
like we're talking
even
about
said
this,
that it's
guys.
just really important to be honest with yourself as to like why you'd be getting into this thing. Because in the end, like you're
They,
the one, like both of you are the ones who are gonna get hurt, and who are you gonna have to blame? And the next thing, the next person has to suffer what the other previous person did, and that's because you weren't honest enough with yourself, you know. So
But I also think that those are isolated cases. I think that people who think are ready to get into relationships and are not, I think those are isolated cases. I'm talking about people who, are in the waiting room, as Maranatha said, at the beginning, that you know that emotionally you're ready to potentially get into a relationship. If the right guy comes along, um, I don't think we should use the same measuring stick for people who think are ready and are not, because that's something completely different.
Okay.
There are people who have connect groups, have connect group leaders, and people who are accountable, people who've been following your spiritual journey, people who are happy with how you're growing with God. I'm talking about those people because I know that those people are ready to get into relationships. I'm not talking about the people who are still suffering, and that's why I'm saying we should talk about Christian dating specifically, because with Christian dating, then we have a set of requirements that you need to fulfill before you get into a relationship, before you are considered ready to get into a relationship. Your relationship with God firstly needs to be strong. You need to have people like you who can keep you accountable. You need to be in a church, and not just in a church, but actively in a church serving. I'm not even talking about like being a pastor or anything. I'm just saying you need to be having a community of people who are Christian also, who are keeping you accountable, who are making sure that everything in your life is going, according to
proper. What purpose?
Yeah, basically. Yes, basically. And Khudisho, we talked about this personally a few weeks ago about how, you said you want someone who is on fire for God.
Yeah. Somebody
and I think
and all that stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's also a requirement.
That's
also a requirement that
which basically all goes back to my point where it's like when we're coming into this thing, I'm not coming in to meet you halfway. We're both coming in with the same mindset, which is very, very important. Because, like I said, if you're coming in with a different mindset and I have this, one way someone is gonna have to compromise, and it's not gonna end well for either one of the party.
Yeah.
But now the requirements, I think, because like with Maranatha said, I'm actually learning most of these things through you also, like the more practical and whatever stuff through you this year after your decision and all that. I'm also still learning some of these things as we're going, because how we're growing up, it's somehow even taboo. Did your parents even talk to you about this? Because mine didn't. They were like, you learn at church about dating, about all of that.
My dad
now,
literally said,
bruh,
once you get to third year, that's when you can start dating. And like the thing is, you tell me this, Neshab, but then what does dating look like? What am I? Do I introduce the person I'm dating to you? Like, because now you've given me permission to say I can start dating. Like, guys, come on.
That's literally the only conversation I had with my parents about introducing them.
That's
the only thing I've ever heard from my parents about dating is only bring a girl home if you're serious about it.
I feel like we should break these guys. When we have kids, we must tell them these things, because we get curious also, because you also get people. We're in high school or even in university, whatever. Even when we're still a bit younger, because I believe when we get into varsity, we have some sort of logic and whatever. But when we're still in high school, this is when all of these things start happening. We get curious, and your parents made it a taboo to talk to you about these things, and now you get into stuff and you don't know.
And the problem is then you learn from all the wrong places.
Exactly. And then coming out of that spot is not the easiest thing. You have to fight and do what needs to be done to get to what you should be doing. Because now there's access to YouTube. We can Google these things and whatsoever. Like you said, you spoke about the John Piper article you were reading and all that. These are stuff now you get more access to, and now there's maybe somebody who's keeping you accountable to help you along that journey. But sometimes when you're in high school, like we have rebellious stages. You're like, they said I mustn't do this. I wonder. My friends are all, and now I'm curious, things like that. So I think we should also just need to break this, because now we get told one thing and you're like, and then that's it. And then next thing you see it at some sort of taboo. I know people who are like, even after they got married, it was hard for them to be intimate. And I'm like, oh, like it gets to that point because people see it as if it's a bad thing. Specifically, I'm talking about sex, but out of a covenant, it is. But in a covenant, it's a
Mm.
great thing. So yeah,
Yeah,
so yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No, I think there's still a lot to talk about, in terms
Mm.
of relationships. Um, yeah, there's a lot that I feel like I still need to, explain. Every time I talk to people about my perspective on relationships, I confuse people even more. So I'm going to write a book, guys. Please buy
I
the
want to
book when
ask
I
my
do it.
Maranatha, were you more confused than answered?
No. I think it's at least just someone who's living out a practical
Yo, you put it
theory
perfectly.
that I've read. Like he's come to a point where you've heard of people like him, but like you never really see them. So I
Mm.
now I know
I'm
like
that guy. I'm the
you're that
unicorn.
guy.
I'm
So
a
which
unicorn,
is great.
guys.
Yeah, my thing is like as long as it's a conscious decision, as long as it's very intentional, as long as you know the reasons behind why you're doing what you're doing, then it's perfect.
Mm,
Keep it going.
yeah,
So
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's it, guys. I think that's a perfect ending with what Maranatha just said. We talked about our singleness and sex. We're even gonna go into that. We just went into it, but we hope you guys learned something from this episode. I learned a lot. I feel like I enjoyed talking to you
Same.
guys talk. So if I leave the podcast, maybe you'd be the next co-host. If which is like 0% chance.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm ready for Khadisha to leave, guys. I'm ready for
Yeah,
Khadisha to leave
I'm
because she doesn't
constantly
want me
being
to start
thrown
that YouTube
shade
channel.
at in this thing. So hey,
No,
It's
guys,
because
this
you don't want
duo
me to
is
start that
perfect.
YouTube channel.
yeah, what's wrong with me starting a YouTube channel, still having the podcast? People who don't want to see
Why?
progress be saying stuff
Why?
like that. But
Yeah. This is
thank
why
you guys
Maranatha would
for
make a great co-host. Maranatha,
yeah.
please, let's make
We,
it happen. Let's
actually, we
talk
might
after
just
this.
have
Thank
you here again. We enjoy talking with you. We might just have you
We
here
thank
again.
do.
Thank
you.
you so much for your insight. Thank you so much for making time. I know we're busy and life gets in the way, but you made time and we really appreciate that. So, for those of you who are listening, just catch us on our social media pages, challenge us, ask questions if you want answers to certain stuff that we said. If you're watching on YouTube, of course, just comment in the comment box and we will talk to you, continue the conversation. And yeah, that's just
Yeah,
about it, right? Right. Bye everybody.
it is. We're going to be back. We're going to talk about this even more. We're not done.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Next in the next episode we'll be talking to someone who's in a relationship and we want to hear how this is for them. How they doing this Christian dating? Are they special friends? Are they, you know? But yeah, that's what's up. So see you guys in the next episode. Bye bye.
Bye.